There are 4 levels of peeking in Rainbow Six Siege, the last of which I guarantee you've never heard of. But if you're newer to the game, the first level of peeking is jiggle peeking. Jiggle peeking is un-ADS'd, or at least the jiggle peeking that I'm talking about in this video. All you do is you peek one way, and then you unpeek. And it's pretty easy to do because you're un-ADS'd from your left or from your right. But jiggle peeking also doesn't even mean that you're having to lean. You can jiggle peek side to side like this, side to side like this, or jiggle peeking is also defined as moving side to side scoped in as well. I've seen a lot of different definitions for what jiggle peeking means, but usually what people are talking about is un-ADS peeking like this. They're just jiggling on the door just to get information so they can scope in and get a kill. It's pretty easy. If you want to do it from the left side of a doorway going to the right, all you have to do is hold down your E and D keys and then press your Q and A keys and go back. And it's just jiggle peeking like this. It's very, very easy to do. Now, you don't have to actually lean all the way back to the left. This used to be really meta back in the days when you would lean really quickly, so it would give you an advantage to lean all the way back instead of just leaning and then coming back to a stand. But nowadays, it's not actually that big of an advantage, so you can just lean and then unlean and move back, lean and then unlean and move back. Or you can actually do a correct jiggle peek and lean to the right, then lean to the left, lean to the right, lean to the left, while you're moving to make it look even better. And then from the right side of the door, swinging left, you hold down Q and A, then you go E to D. Q and A, E to D, Q to A, D, you know, you get it, It's smooth, it's nice, it's nice, it's nice. This is the easiest level of peeking in Rainbow Six Siege, jiggle peeking. Advantages of this peek in particular is it's pretty quick, and you don't have to be ADS, which makes it a little bit easier for you to see exactly what's on your screen, especially if you have a more zoomed in scope, like an ACOG. So if you're trying to jiggle peek somewhere that's a bit closer, like the top of this staircase, doing it zoomed in might be disadvantaged for you. But if you do it while jiggle peeking, now you know exactly where to put your crosshair in relation to where their head is, and then peek. So it has the advantage of being better for closer ranges and better for newer players because it's easy to do and is good for close ranges. Some disadvantages that I'll go over right now are how it looks to the enemy's POV. So now I'm in match replay, and if I go to free cam mode without a HUD and I go to, like, let's say white stairs right here, you can see whenever I resume the footage, this is what I look like when I'm jiggle peeking from the right. It's very, very obvious. And the better you get at it, the more of your body you will not expose, but that is the one disadvantage of this, is that you expose the most amount of your body compared to other peaks. This is what it looks like from the left. You see the shoulder and the leg. Now, I'm not the best doing it from that side, as you can see, but that's pretty much what it looks like. But now that we've gone over the easiest type of peeking, let's go over the most common type of peeking, which is just quick peeking. All you have to do for this is lean, and then unlean, and then lean, and then unlean. Whereas jiggle peeking, you did it un-ADS, this time you're doing it ADS, which is a little bit harder to do, and you're not going from one lean to the other lean. This time, you're just leaning and then unleaning. Very big difference, and one of them is a lot quicker than the other one and a lot more reliable. As you can see, this is jiggle peeking. Or if your definition of jiggle peeking is the un-ADS version, it looks like this. Whereas quick leaning is much faster and looks like this. This is the most common peek in Rainbow Six Siege. It's the one that I use the most often, it's the one that most ranked players used often, and it's not the most advanced, but it definitely gets the job done. To do it, like I said, instead of trying to peek one way and then re-leaning the other way, or doing that un-ADS, what you need to do is aim in. Stand as far back from the angle that you're jiggle peeking as possible to not expose your body as much as possible. Then you're going to move to the left while leaning to the left at the same time, so it shouldn't look like this, it should look like this. And then you're going to just move all the way back. So you don't just peek and then unpeek, otherwise you'll still be exposed. You peek and move, then move and unpeek. Peek and move and unpeek. Peek and move and unpeek. Very, very simple. Once you have it down, it should look like this. Now, I'm not as good on my left as I am on my right, so let me show you how it's done on the right. For this, you want to use your E and D keys, whereas the other one, you were using your Q and A keys. So right here, I'm pressing E and then D to move. Then I'm letting go of those keys and pressing A to move back. And in one solid fluid motion, it should look like this. And then if you get good enough, you can do it pretty fast. Now, the mistake that I see most players making whenever they're doing this peek is the one that I actually just showed you. You don't want to just sit on a doorway where your shoulder is exposed to the person holding the pixel over here and peek it like this. As you can see, I'm peeking and moving, but then I am repositioning back to where I started. Right now, my shoulder and leg is exposed to the person in this hallway. To correct this mistake, all you have to do is whenever you peek, overcompensate your unpeak by moving back to cover and then going and then moving back to cover. Most people don't move back to cover after their peak a little bit long enough. So whenever they're jiggle peeking, you can see their entire shoulder while they're doing it and just shoot their shoulder while they're quick peeking. But if someone's good at quick peeking, they're going to peek, move a lot, then peek, then move a lot, then peek, then move a lot. So you can't shoot their shoulder mid-peek. So instead of it looking like this, it looks like this. You're making it to where you're not actually as exposed. And the closer up you are to an actual surface, the easier you can do this. And the quicker you can do it. But like I said, peeking from a distance is much more advantageous because less of you is exposed. So it's kind of a pick your poison idea. Do you like back up and make it a tad bit slower? Or do you go in front of the doorway and make it a tad bit faster, but you expose yourself more, right? It's, you know, pick your own poison. Now, advantages of this peak compared to the last peak is it's much quicker. That's why it's called a quick peak. It's quicker, you'll get the same amount of information, and because you're doing it so many times, due to the fact that it's so quick, you get more accurate crosshair placement out of the first 1 or 2 quick peeks when you get the information. Not only this, but because it's quick, you can quickly change the level at which you're standing. If you're crouched, if you're prone for whatever reason, or if you're standing, you can change your levels depending on. So if I see someone quick peeking me 3 times, I'm not going to pre-fire crouch level, I'm going to pre-fire head level. So I know, okay, maybe I should quick peek 3 times like this, and then crouch and pre-fire, so I don't get pre-fired, right? Maybe the opposite. Maybe you're quick peeking from crouched, and then you do that, and then you stand, so you don't get pre-fired, right? Either way, you can, because it's so quick, change the level at which you're peeking to really throw enemies off so you don't get pre-fired in the head. Now, the last peek that we talked about had a huge disadvantage where you can see the majority of the actual player, the leg and the shoulder. This doesn't really have that disadvantage. You really only just see their head if they're doing it correctly, and maybe a bit of their shoulder if they're not doing it correctly. Now, I have my lean keys on hold and not toggle, so it's going to look a little bit more incorrect than somebody who has it on toggle, because that's actually what you're supposed to have if you want to do this peek correctly, but it just feels wrong to me, so I've always had it on hold, and it's a little bit easier to peek if you have it on hold, in my opinion. So, because there aren't really many disadvantages, other than the fact that you can see the person's head who's doing it and easily pre-fire them, let's go over how it looks from an enemy POV. Now, as you can see, this is the free match replay, and if I go all the way out here, this is what quick peeking looks like. You can barely see the head or the shoulder of the actual person compared to the last peek where it's much more visible. If I were standing outside and I were getting quick peeked from someone on the head holes, this is what it would look like. As you can see, because a little wooden block right here is kind of covering me, you can't really see it. So with that out of the way, let's go on to our next peek, which is the one that every Pro League player uses, which is Shaiko peeking. Wooting. Wooting is a keyboard company specifically, and I recently just partnered with them to get their Wooting 60HE, which is the best gaming keyboard on the market, hands down. I've been having this opinion before I even partnered with them, right? I actually partnered with them and I reached out to them because I thought this keyboard was so good. If you don't believe me, almost every single professional player on every single game, Valorant, Rainbow Six Siege, Overwatch, even Osu players love this keyboard because there's a specific thing that this keyboard can do that most other keyboards can't. And that is setting your actuation points on your keys. So as you can see, I have my keyboard right here. It's set to a specific setting that I have, a digital profile, if you will, called my Rainbow Six Siege profile. Essentially, this means that every single key on my keyboard, I can set to a specific setting if I want it to immediately activate the second I touch my key, or if I want it to activate if I have to press my key all the way down. For example, right now, I have my movement keys set to 1.0 milliseconds, which is some of the fastest actuation settings that you can get on a key. So even if I touch my key a little bit on my W key, I'm going to move forward, right? Which just makes moving easier, especially if you're going for quick peeks, sudden movements, jiggle peeks, knife peeking, whatever it may be. Being able to have my keys activate the second I even touch them or a piece of dust falls on the key is really nice if you want to be able to move. Also, you can see my Q and E buttons are set to 0.4, which is even faster than my W, A, S, and D keys, which means when I'm quick peeking, it is so much faster than if I do it on a normal regular keyboard. And it's something that's even noticeable. When I streamed the other day and I got this keyboard, I was like, oh my god, I have to kind of relearn how to quick peek because I was able to quick peek so much faster and just easier due to the fact that I could just set my keys up in a different way. This is something that is like completely game breaking, which is why half of the pros that you watch in any Pro League setting use this keyboard. It's a very, very, very good keyboard. As you can see, the actuation speed of my actual keys right now, because I have tachyon mode enabled, is 1 millisecond. 1! That's the speed of my monitor. That's a fast keyboard. Just look at it. It's so good. I'm gonna get y'all a little listen too. Just listen to the sound. my sticky keys enabled. And if you think it doesn't look good right now, you can change the color of it too, right? You can change it to whatever you want. You can change the speed of it. It has its own software that you download for free off the internet. It takes absolutely zero space. You can get the exact hex code of colors that you want. It's absolutely crazy, right? But you can set your own profiles. Right now, I'm on my Rainbow Six Siege profile. But when I play GTA, I want to be able to have a GTA profile. Because these keys allow you to do something else that's crazy. Which is, if I want to drive a car in GTA, the speed of the car can depend on how far I'm pressing down my keys. So if I'm just lightly pressing down the key, my car goes slow. But if I'm pressing it down all the way, my car is going to go fast. It's just a crazy keyboard, not only for Siege and Pro League people, but for any game. So, if you want a really, really, really good keyboard, check out Wu-Ting, specifically the 60HE model. And with that out of the way, let's get back into the video. So I'll be completely honest, I actually really suck at Shiko peeking, and I don't want to misinform y'all on how to do it. I do know how to do it, but because my lean keys are set to hold and not toggle, it's almost impossible for me to do it, and I'm so bad at it that I don't think it would do you justice to learn it from me. So instead, I'm going to show you somebody else who does it really good, so you can learn how to do it better. So this is a video by Sinus. He is a very good R6 YouTuber. I love his content. So this is him quick peeking really quick, not this clip, but this clip right here, or not quick peeking, sorry, Shiko peeking. This is him doing it. So I wanted to show you this so you know what it looks like, because I'm terrible at replicating it. So as you can see, he leans in, but his scope kind of jiggles to the right, then jiggles to the left in a really fast motion, as you'll see right here. As you saw, it was like a millisecond. It jiggled to the right, then jiggled to the left, like very quickly. He does it again. It's like a very fast little like jiggle that's happening right here. And you can really only do it if you have on your toggle on lean instead of hold, which is why I wanted to show you it here, since I literally cannot do it and I suck at it. But that should give you a rough estimate of how to actually do it. You lean in, and then as you are leaning out to go back to where you were, you're going to lean out, then lean back in. Now, I know there are some players that have their lean keys set to hold and not toggle that can Shiko peek good. That's right for you. I fucking can't. So don't rely on me for that, but you get the idea. This is the one that all the pros use. Let me just see if I can like actually try to do it. Hold on. Oh, I almost had it. But yeah, no, I can't do this. I have to go on toggle. I have to learn how to do that. Maybe that should be like a video I do, is like learning how to Shiko peek. I don't know. That could be fire. But like, you get the idea. You have to lean, unlean, lean, and then lean back. It's very weird. Now, pros and cons. Let's go over cons first. Obviously, it's very hard to do. Your favorite content creator, Alka R6 on YouTube, doesn't even know how to do it properly, and a lot of content creators don't even know how to do it properly, and a lot of Pro League players even don't do it. They just stick to quick peeking or doing our next peek that I'll talk about later. Advantages, though, is it looks amazing. The only actual part of the player that you see when they peek is their head. You barely see their shoulder, you barely see their leg, if at all, and you'll barely even see their head. You really only see like the side of their head. It's actually kind of like scary. You barely see them at all. And then disadvantages being that it's hard to do, but not only is it hard to do, but it's hard to do consistently. And because you're doing it so quickly, it's a little bit harder to get as much information as a quick peek would. And because you're using so many keys on so many fingers, it can get in the way of your movement properly. But that's about it for the disadvantages. It's the best peek on this list so far. Now, if you want to see what it looks like from the enemy's POV if you're doing it, this is what it looks like in that same Sinus video. You really only see their shoulder. Like, you do not see much. Because the unlean animation as you're Shiko peeking, it takes your head out of the way while your body's still there. So you still get the same information without exposing your head. So really, all they see is your shoulder and maybe the side of your head if you're bad at it, but that's about it. It is an outstanding peek. A peek that is even more outstanding, that even more pros don't use and can't use, is our final peek, which is prone peeking. This has been a peek for years and years now, but because of how difficult it is to do, a lot of pros stop doing it in favor for the Shiko peek, because the Shiko peek does what you need to do without getting in the way of a lot of other things. No, the prone peek isn't just prone quick peeking and then prone unpeeking. It's not the snappy peek. That is a completely different peek that will throw your games, I promise. But it's whenever you're peeking, you prone and unprone really quickly. Kind of like this. I honestly don't even know if I'm doing that correctly, but it should look something roughly like this. I have a mouse button as my prone key. I'm weird, I know, but like that's why it's a little bit more difficult for me. But it should be pretty easy once you get it down. Like, this is the first time I've ever tried it. I'm already like kind of having it down. But it's a normal jiggle peek, but you're just proning on the way through to get the info so that you can easily go for the kill. Pro Chinese guy made a YouTube short on this, where he called it the Hashom peek. That's exactly what I'm talking about here. You're essentially just peeking and proning, And the reason that this is so effective if you do it correctly... Oh, why am I so good on the left and not on the right? That's crazy. Look at that. Oh, I'm getting it. Except for that time, damn. But the reason that it's more effective than, let's say, a Psycho Peek, a Quick Peek, or a Jiggle Peek is because it actually makes it to where the enemy sees the least amount of you as possible. The only part of you that they see is your elbow. I'll let Pro Chinese Guy explain the rest.
Peek. You've heard of jiggle peeking, but now there's the Hashome peek. It's a mechanic a lot of pros have been picking up at the 6th Invitational 2024. This is actually a resurfacing mechanic in C, and I'm not quite sure who invented it, but since Hashome from the MENA region used it so well in this clip, we're just gonna go with that. After getting an easy kill on NJR outside trench, he's in a 1v1 to win the clutch against Canadian, who's in blue. And this is where things get really interesting. He actually prones the peek Canadian in blue. He actually hits that prone peeky thing he does a couple more times before actually getting the kill on Canadian. So why is he proning while he's peeking, and what does that look like from the enemy POV? I got on a custom lobby to test it out with my friend, and it's actually really broken. As you can see, this is my friend's POV hitting the prone key while he's jiggling right and left, and from my POV, I can only see his elbow. Compare this to Psycho peeking, where I can see almost his entire head when he peeks out every single jiggle. This is a vast world of difference. So the way to do it is you lean the way you want to jiggle peeking, and you do a regular strafe jiggle peek. But right before you're about to reach the door, you hit your prone key, and then as you're unpeeking, you hit your unprone key. The biggest downside on this is these peeks are purely for info, but still very...
I think he said that pretty well. You essentially just prone while you're peeking. Like I said earlier, it's really nice. And the upside of it again is that they can only see your elbow, kind of like your knife peeking. They actually can't see any of you, which is why it is the best peek on this list that a lot of people don't know about. If you want to call it the snappy peek, you can. Sure, I don't really care. I don't think that's the peek that he's doing, and he definitely wasn't the one that invented it. No hate towards him, but you get the idea. It's a prone peek, it's pretty cool, and it is the most advantageous peek you could possibly do. Now, what are the downsides of this peek? The downsides of this peek is like Pro Chinese Guy said. If you actually try to get a kill off of this, you won't unless you get a lucky hip fire, because you have to do this un-ADS'd. Which means this peek is purely for information, whereas other peeks might not be. Because then once you do the peek, you have to then re-ADS and kill the person instead of being ADS'd while you're quick peeking and then killing the person after a pre-fire. So it's much less advantageous for gunfights and more just for information, which is the only actual downside to it, except for the fact that it's a little bit hard to do. But if I can semi-learn it in like 5 minutes, you definitely can learn too after some practice. But now that I've showed you the enemy POV, your POV, and how to do that, as well as the 3 other peeks, that is going to be it for this video. Sub the channel down below, check out this next video. My name's Alka, and I'll see you there. Later.